So why should you use a red dot? I'm Brian Hill with a Complete Combatant. We teach red dot classes, we teach optic classes, and I think it's very important that people understand the differences and the advantages. For some people, technology is easy to adopt, and for others, it's more difficult. But pistols are moving towards red dots. Almost all manufacturers are making them now where they're optic ready, and I think the future we'll see a combination of pistols and dots that are available together. At least I hope so. Let's talk about the advantages of the red dot first, then we'll talk about some disadvantages. The number one advantage of the red dot is that you can use stereoscopic vision, which that means both channels of the eye are simply focusing on the image, and then you will see a red dot. That allows you depth, precision, and clarity, allows you to judge distance more effectively, and it also allows you to see what's happening with the target. When we use an iron sight, we have to accommodate back to the iron sight. The iron sight's clear, target's fuzzy, and the back sight is fuzzy. So that's a clear advantage. It's also much more precise aiming reticle. It's very small in comparison to a front sight, so it'll only cover about 2.5 inches with a 2.5 MOA at 100 yards. So you can see more of the target all the time, and you can make more precise shots. Even if you have an astigmatism, which means that you're bending light differently in your eyes and it'll change the shape, you shoot the center of the red dot and it still works out perfectly well. I think that's a big advantage for people, is being able to focus upon the target. One of the things that I see that makes a big difference in progression is how quick the diagnostics are. People can correct quicker with a red dot under a skillful instructor than they can with iron sights. It's very quick to show motion and mistakes, and it's easier for the person to simply look at one focal plane and say, I understand what's happening now. It's a lot harder with a 3 focal plane sight. So diagnostics are quicker and simpler with the red dot. I think that's an advantage for us as instructors, and definitely an advantage for you as a client, because you'll be able to progress more quickly. It will show more motion, but your front sight has always been in motion. The way our body works is it sends a signal to the muscles to squeeze, and that's frequency, not amplitude. We don't squeeze harder, it just keeps telling us so. So if I look at my finger like this, I'll see a little bit of shake in it. That's there in your front sight. It's also there in your red dot. You'll see that type of motion. And speaking of motion, transitions with red dots easier too, because we get a streak, all right? It moves as a streaking line and allows us to show where it's going up and down during recoil, right and left if we're doing a transition. And then we're looking at the target and waiting for the dot to come into it. So it allows us a huge advantage to come into that position, knowing that the dot is tracking with us. If we had iron sights, we'd have to look at the target, accommodate back to the front sight, and press it. So even though it's not a huge deal, but it may be 0.2 seconds for you to do that each time, and that can add up over time. Especially when you get over 40, your accommodation begins to slow down. Let's talk about eyesight issues. If you wear glasses or contacts, the red dot works better for most people. The problem with the front sight is most glasses are not focused for out here where the iron sight is. So you end up with one eye to infinity and one eye focused on that. Then you have shooting glasses, which you may or may not be using when you have to use it for personal protection. So the red dot helps overcome that for some people. There are a couple eye issues the red dot's not particularly good for. If you have just one eye that works really well and the other eye doesn't, that'll make a big difference. If you have shared dominance, some people can switch dominance to eyes. It's something that requires training to make sure that you're using the dot correctly, but that doesn't stop you from using it. So a lot of good advantages there. All right. Some of the disadvantages is it takes training. You'll have to present the gun in a better manner, because we're going to have to use a kinesthetic index to present the gun where it should be, and then we're going to confirm it with the red dot. What a lot of people do with the iron sights is simply fix it at the end. Okay. So yes, a little bit more training. If you're under the hands of a skillful coach, this can be shortcutted in a matter of a day, 1 day, 2 day class can make a huge difference. And you'll notice that your shooting will improve much quicker in that manner. And that's what we're offering here at the Complete Combatant. Is we're going to give you modern methodology of coaching and allow you to perform at your highest level. And what we're doing is combining technology with human performance. All right, much like the sprinters do, they have a better track, they have better starting blocks. We're going to have better gear, which will allow us to perform at the highest level. And really, shooting comes down to who can process the quickest. If you look at a 4K TV, the first time you look at it, man, it looks funny. There's too much information in it. but you watch it for a couple months and then it seems normal. And then you look at an old TV and it seems somehow less than it was, and it's not as much fun to watch. The same thing with the dot. It's going to give us a great deal of processing information and it'll allow us to expand quicker. You know, it's a great thing to have iron sights and a red dot on a pistol because it gives you two things that work well together. The red dot may be mechanically complex, it's visually simple, and if it fails, it's catastrophic. The iron sights are visually complex, mechanically simple, and if they fail, it's catastrophic. So now we have two systems on a gun, and they're not huge, they're not bulky, they don't make a big difference in your concealment, but I think what they're returning is an ability that you wouldn't have without them. And I think it's worth the extra money to get some training for them, because we're going to see a real revolution in shooting and how carry optics will change everything for shooters. And I think for the armed citizen, it's a great blending of technology and human performance. I think we're coming up on the day where we're going to see a large majority of guns with dots on it. I've seen the skill in my classes, the testing scores have gone up dramatically, which is a real big change because people with red dots are shooting skills that were considered difficult before, and I'm starting to think I may have to change some of those testing procedures because people with a red dot are getting 10 or 15% higher scores than they were able to with iron sights originally. I don't know what to say about that, but 10 or 15% is a great return on an investment, and I think you'll see it too. So please come join us at the Complete Combatant. Let's work on your red dot optic for your pistol. Let's teach you how to use it to your highest standards. Let's help you understand how you work as a shooter, and then let's understand how the equipment is set up and what the advantages are for it. All right, Brian Hill with the Complete Combatant. Our byline is measure, refine, and perform. And when you come to class, that's what we'll do with the red dot, and you'll see progress very quickly. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, reach out to me.